So I'd like briefly to compare the underlying cultural values of the relatively recent materialistic world we live in and the more ancient and established indigenous values. You can see I've done that in a simple chart. Our present society is based on the exploitation of nature and natural resources. To some degree, significantly, this has caused a degradation of our habitat. Obviously, a species that's continually degrading its habitat does not have a very long-term future. You could say we're causing a less livable planet. Unfortunately, not just for our species, but for many others. In the long term, of course, or the medium term, a less livable planet is going to result in a weaker economy. Alternatively, let's look at the underlying values of the original indigenous cultures around the planet. One of the basic essences was respect for and nurturing of nature, which is nurturing the habitat of those people. Obviously, this results in a more livable planet, and in the medium and long term, a more sustainable economy, whatever you perceive that to mean. And for people who feel threatened by the idea of indigenous and non-indigenous, let me say, we are all indigenous to the same shared planet. So how do we increase livability or sustainability? I've touched on the idea of nurturing our habitat. Let's look at what is currently being proposed around the world to achieve this. To simplify it, I'll use the term carbon tax for the various initiatives aimed at reducing our carbon consumption, and sustainability, GST, exemptions. Now, of course, I'm referring to the situation in Australia, but that is not dissimilar to the rest of the world. One of the weaknesses with carbon taxes or emission trading schemes are they basically give people a licence to emit. In the Australian context, and I believe most other countries around the world, carbon tax is a new form of taxation. Not that popular an idea, really. Increased taxes and new taxes result in increased costs. They also result in more bureaucracy, and they're not all that popular with the general population. Now let's look at having GST exemptions for low carbon emitting technologies, and more preferably for the most sustainable technologies. If GST is not payable on non-carbon emitting technologies, it is still penalising emissions or emission-based technologies. It doesn't result in a new tax, rather it results in the lessening of an existing tax. This frees up more money to do better things in our society. It also, from an economic point of view, results in decreased costs. Less or the same amount of bureaucracy, and I believe would have more general public support.